Willie, what are you doing? What are you doing? What?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Are you about to play your game?
Yes.
Okay.
You can come talk to me.
Huh?
So you can come talk to me.
What do you mean?
We said, are you ready?
Yeah. What do you mean come talk to you?
What do you mean, are you ready?
Well, I just thought I was going to hang out over here. Do you
Oh.
mean like, you want me to stand over there and talk to you?
Oh, you can just talk to me. I don't care. What were you going to do?
Just sit right here.
Okay, that's fine. Are you going to read?
Yeah, but we can chat.
No, I want you to read the book.
I'm going to read the book, but my intention was to sit here and support you.
Oh. You want to keep talking about what we were talking about?
If you like, yeah.
Let's see. I think what triggers the I think, okay, maybe not triggers, but like the not wanting to take the time to take care of myself is like, okay, so for instance, I've got the lesson with the girls today.
What time?
5:30. But because my brain doesn't process time the way I suppose the neurotypical versions would, is I freeze up because like I know it's at 5:30 and yes, I can use the clock, but my body doesn't process time the same way. So what happens is if I have anything that is going to happen during the day that I tell myself I can't do anything but wait and prep for that thing, because I may accidentally run out of time because I don't know how to it's like if you take your eye off the snake, it can bite you because you don't know where it is. So you watch the snake the whole time. And so I think that's on days when I have it's not to say I don't deal with this on days that I don't have an appointment, a time-based appointment. But on days that I do have a time-based appointment, it seems to compound the issue. And especially like my programming of wanting to get up. I'm like, okay, you got to get up early in the morning. And that when I have an appointment, it seems to compound on top of me because I'm mad that I didn't create as much space as possible in my day between waking up and the thing that I'm waiting for, which makes me anxious because I'm like, how am I going to get everything done? I didn't maximize this space in between. And so that's why I struggle more on these days. I would say I struggle every day a little bit. It's just not near as much when I feel like it doesn't matter what time I do things, like if I'm just gonna be home.
Yeah.
I might have the thought like, oh, well, I should have gotten up. Okay, well, fine. Like I'm gonna work later. It's fine. But when I've got like something I have to do at this time, it feels like it like short circuits my brain and it emotionally hijacks me, and it makes it very difficult to take the times like to do this, to sit here and play the game, to get into the day. Does that make sense? Yeah.
that everybody has that inclination because we're time bound to something. We know that there is a limited time frame between now and when, like, I have to go to the mural, which is at the exact same time.
Right.
And so I think because we're used to the negative pressure that comes with motivating somebody to hurry up and get something done before you
like
go
that's
do something.
Like because of how we were raised in school.
I think it's kind of like it's a trigger that evokes the emotion, the negative emotion, but it doesn't have to be the way that we do that. It can be much kinder, it can be much more deliberate, it can be much more helpful in the sense of like, okay, well, yes, you do have this thing going on later on. Yes, there are things that need to get done, but not everything is a priority. And there are things that can wait till tomorrow. The important thing is to sit and deal with the feeling so that you can look at the things that you think need to get done and look at it with a helpful eye rather than a critical eye where it's like, well, you can't, everything needs to get done. All of it is a priority, but that is not looking at it with a kind eye. That's looking at it with a negative, pessimistic, critical eye. And that's not fair. It's not fair.
Right.
Because not everything is a high priority. It can't be. It's impossible.
Right. You turn into the Marge Rover.
Right.
Where you're just stuck procrastinating on tasks because.
Right. And it's because the negative pressure exists, and it doesn't allow us to just be ourselves for a little while. You know. There is an exorbitant amount of things that need to get done, which are, by and large, so arbitrary. It boggles the mind because you're like, these things in the grand scale are so arbitrary. It's not even funny. But yet here we are, spending a lot of our time doing it. Well, okay, if those things are so arbitrary and they're going to have to be done regardless, why am I sitting here making them seem like they're the most important things in the world?
I think for me, because I can't tell what's arbitrary and what's not.
You can, but you look at it through the filter of the snake about to bite you.
Oh, that's exactly right. I think of it as what other people won't see as a priority.
Exactly. And
okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And so that's why you can't discern between what's important and what's not, because you think it's all relative to whoever's looking at it,
right?
Or whoever the snake is.
No, and that's I think that's also why I struggle with criticism, because I think I feel like I'm starting to overcome this. It certainly has been worse in the past, but for a long time, I would tell myself, simply because someone had the balls to say the criticism to me must mean it's accurate. And let me unpack that a little further. Because for me, what it takes for me to actually give criticism to somebody, because I think this is both, I have an extreme amount of empathy, but also I was raised with Gen X parents who, the kind of Gen X mantra is, we just rationalize why the abuser abuses us, and that lets us cope. So we don't say anything unless it's like bad enough that it's causing life or death harm. And so between that and I genuinely don't want to make someone feel bad, even if they've continued for years to hurt me, I still don't want to make them feel bad. And so for me to say something first of all, I would say something passive aggressive now, because that's not helpful. But when I was younger, to say something passive aggressive or to provide criticism in any way meant that I was overriding all of that programming of don't call out stuff, because that's what my parents did, and as well I just don't want to make them feel bad. I have to override that, and that's very difficult for me. So I saw people criticizing as they also must have to override their want to not make me feel bad. They must have to override their what I'm doing must be so bad that they think that I'm causing life or death harm, because people only speak up when something really, really bad's happening, because that's what my parents did. My parents didn't speak up against anything. Like, I was talking to Mom last night about certain Christian man who was sitting at the dinner table with us at Thanksgiving, telling us this super sexually explicit fantasy that his friend was having about a girl. And literally, I'm like, Mom, you were sitting at the table. You and Dad, I said, Josh and I are staring at each other, being like, what is... All the adults are in the room and this is happening, and everyone's sitting there like it's fine. And she's like, I know, I don't know why we didn't say anything. We just wanted it to be over. And I was like, it would be over if you said something. But that was the level of, like, even that wasn't enough to call it out. So for me, I struggle because if I hear criticism, I think that if I'm getting criticized, I must be doing something so wrong that it's even worse than that. On top of that, they had to override their not wanting me to feel bad. So it's just a clusterfuck of programming, and so to wrap it back to the original point, I spend an inordinate amount of energy trying to prevent criticism, because I'm learning to work through it, and that's why I don't know how to make things a priority, because I just think somebody's going to make this a priority, and they're going to take it out on me because it's not done. Because I think that if they took the time and the energy to override all that programming and their discomfort to tell me I'm doing something wrong, it must be right. And I live in fear of that every day, all the time, of someone criticizing me, because that's how I have interpreted criticism for 28 years. It's only the last 2 that I've really started to unpack that. And so I think that still creeps up subconsciously when I'm dealing with productivity, because the thing I fear the most is criticism, because for some reason it seemed like the only person worthy of criticism was me. Because it didn't matter how bad and how terrible the things the adults said and did, no one said anything to them. But everything I did was wrong.
Your fear of criticism is a fear that was passed down to you from your parents, so that you wouldn't put them in a position where they would have to deal with something they don't like dealing with.
Right. Yes, I see that now. But keep going.
And so now you're having to kind of push back against that same voice.
Yes. That clicked. Okay.
That you're hearing in your head, where you're like, yeah, you can't say anything, because if you do,
you'll embarrass us.
You'll embarrass us.
Or, and here's the thing that makes me even more mad, is that I'll get the typical line, which is, "You'll put us in the middle," which is insane.
Same thing.
Yeah.
It's communicating the
like,
same thing.
they're saying, you're making us have to do our job and stand up for you, and we're not comfortable standing up to these people. That's why we had you, to make us feel better. They didn't do that consciously, but that's what they did. And by expecting them to, be the heroes I needed.
Your rationale for not wanting to face criticism, I don't think is
It's not valid. I 100% don't think it's valid.
That's not what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll keep picking corn. You keep thinking.
I was about to put it in a
Oh,
way.
sorry.
The way that you process criticism, I think, goes through certain layers. You hear the criticism, you think, I shouldn't say anything because the person that's actually expressing the criticism is right for doing so.
Yes.
Because based on my experience, only people that have the gumption to do so are right.
Yes.
But because I've been told that I don't have any position to criticize anybody for anything, means that based on my logic, I'm always wrong.
The fact that criticism takes place must mean I'm wrong.
And then the next layer is that your parents, and this isn't something they taught you by telling you, it's something they taught you by behaving.
It's something I learned through both mirroring and interpretation. And
that thing is that they don't stick up for you whenever you do feel like you need to say something. Or push back against a criticism, because if you do push back, nobody's going to be there to support you or defend you or stand up for you.
Yes.
So you sit here going through those motions in your head where you're like, A, I don't have the right to push back on any criticism. B, I'm always wrong. And C, even if I did, nobody would be there to defend me, even myself, because I still don't feel like I'm right.
Right. No, exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, exactly. And to add complication to that, I think to this day I still feel this way, because I think that's why I'm so fervent about standing up for people, which is, even when my parents will tell me, and have told me since I was probably 12, we agree with you, but, they would still criticize me for calling out things they agreed with, which, that's really confusing. That's confusing for a 30-year-old, much less a 12-year-old. Like, you won't stand up for me when you agree with me, but when someone's harming me, you say nothing? Like, what is that? That's insane. And I think that is what led me to feeling so depressed, was because it was it felt like life was hopeless, because what chance would I ever have of earning my parents', I don't even know if approval, they would say they approved of me, but like, how could I possibly earn respect is maybe the right word? To me it felt like, how could I possibly earn the respect to be treated correctly when my parents tell me they agree with me and they believe what I say is right, but they criticize me and defend the person that's abusing me and them. They'll say, but they don't know, they're from a different time, or, there's just, we can't say it. That's what I was told when I confronted the thing with my uncle the first time. It was, what do you want us to do? We know you're right, but we'll break up the family if this happens, if we say something. Why is the abuse okay? And I'm not saying that they said it was okay, but their actions to me said it was okay, because they refused to put a stop to it.
Okay.
And
so hold on to that statement.
Okay.
Why is the abuse okay is a good question. Why is it okay for this person to do this thing and you stand by and do nothing?
Yes.
So then why is it okay for this perception of somebody coming in and criticizing you okay, and for you, talking about you, to sit here and do nothing about it? Why is that okay? It's essentially, we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
You are sitting by, defending the position through programming that it's it's better for me to take the abuse of a perceived threat that could come at me in the form of criticism. Why am I defending that position and allowing myself to basically take action or inaction towards doing things a certain way that completely take any sort of power I have for myself? Why is it okay for me to do that? My parents didn't defend me. I learned not to defend myself through them, and to allow this abuse, whether it's perceived or real, to continue to happen. Why is it that I am modeling my parents' behavior without them even being here?
Yes.
The question is it not, we understand why it happened in the first place. Now the question is it why am I still allowing myself to do that, knowing what I know? That's the question. That's the frustration.
Right.
The essence of it is you feel powerless.
Yes, because I feel like, yeah, exactly. Because I think, because I cannot move past the thought. It's frustrating because I say it's frustrating. I know why it's happening. It's happening because it's my prefrontal cortex against my limbic system. I have two pieces of my brain fighting against each other. Which is, I know that when I have that icky feeling of this is not okay behavior, it's time to call this out. Because I'm not a bad person. I don't believe in people hurting people. And I know what the effects of immature adults behaving in immature ways can do to kids, because I've lived that. So I know that when I see something that is toxic and not okay and needs to be called out, I should, and I can for other people, because I can defend them, because I know they
deserve it.
Yes.
And you don't.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm like. I can't convince myself that I deserve it, because to this day, and I've had this conversation. I'm not afraid to talk about this because I've had this conversation with my parents multiple times. To this day, I can't get, and this is a generational thing. And no, here I am fucking doing what Gen Z or Gen X does, which is rationalizing the thing that traumatized me, which is because my parents, even to this day, and my dad has, I think, made strides to get better, but for the most part, they can't defend me when I need them to now. Why? What is it there? But they can do it for other people. They can do it for Josh. What's wrong with me? I know that there's not anything wrong with me, but my inner child, my limbic system, is like, because they can't do it for me, I can't do it for myself, because I don't even know how to do it for myself, because no one's done it for me. And that hurts. And so and the answer is maybe I don't know how to stand up for myself, because with the exception of you, I've not really had someone ever do that. I've always been the one defending everyone else, because I don't want anyone to feel like that. And I don't like that. And so I think I am stuck in this loop of I'm putting it off. Like, I'm like, okay, I won't treat myself this way when I know how to stand up to criticism. But I continue not to know how to stand up to criticism when it's about me. Because it just seems like it physically shuts me down. And I don't know what to do with that. And so, because I haven't figured that out, I'm not comfortable standing up to I don't even want to say myself because I would never treat myself that way. I'm not comfortable standing up to the programming that says I'm in danger of a criticism because I still do not know how to address it when it happens. Does that make sense? And so I just stay in kind of terrorism of these alarm bells in my head of you are doing things that are weird and people don't like, and like all the things that I learned growing up. And because and largely because I've started being myself, I feel like this is resurging in a way it hasn't for a while. Because I'm online. When I see a toxic post, I question it. I speak very academically, like I've been trained, but I still call it out. I've already been called weird and crazy because I cosplay, and my family, that I dress up every day, like that I'm a freak. Like, I know those things are happening, and the more I lean into being myself, it's like the worse the programming gets, because the programming's like freaking out because I'm going against it. And that's when I have mornings like this, because I'm like, it's just, at this point, it's just so much. It's so much of my entire body being in fight or flight, because I'm both being me and I'm doing the right thing. And my programming doesn't like those things, because that's not what kept me safe as a child at all. Those are the things that got me emotionally abandoned. And I don't know I don't really know what to do with that part of myself. That sits there and is like, no, you shouldn't do this. This is a danger. You're putting yourself in danger. You're going to get criticized. And then I don't know where to go from there, because the next question is, okay, what do you do when you're criticized? I don't know.
Well, I don't think the idea is to figure out how to deal with the criticism. You don't have the answer to that. Okay. And I don't think anybody has the right answer to it. I mean, people could definitely give their own perspectives of how to deal with criticism.
And their, like, how they do it.
And how they do it. But it may never click in for you, because that's maybe not the way that you're going to handle it. I don't think the answer is to stop and be like, okay, how do I deal with this?
It's to just put yourself in the position to be criticized.
Because what happens is that you have a question mark and then you go the other direction.
Yes.
Like, I don't have the answer, so I'm going to continue to avoid it, or to continue to treat myself in a way that
is not okay.
Right. The idea is to have to face it. That's the only way you can figure it out. And facing it can be scary. However, you are not faced in the same situation you were when you were little, which was you didn't have anybody on your side.
Right.
And now you do.
Right.
Now you do. You know you have me on your side. You know I'll go to battle with anybody, especially your family. Because there's nothing in it for me. Like, right. I'm not at any risk of losing anything, and I've already had to deal with my family, and I've lost that, and I'm fine. So, you have me on your side, and, I don't think that you're going to be faced with the same situation if you do have to deal with the criticism. And now we're not even talking about just your family. We're talking about anybody that can come into this house that maybe has something to do with what you do, for what you do with your business. If they came in and they completely destroyed you, I would step in for you. In a moment where maybe you just don't have the ability to do it, I would step in. That's how it would look like to face the criticism. Would it be hurtful? Yes. Would it make you feel like you got destroyed? Sure. It might. But that's okay. You would be okay afterwards. We would deal with it. We'd make sure that you felt safe. We would make sure that we helped you feel what you needed to feel. And then you would come out the other side and realize that maybe facing criticism isn't the end for me. Maybe the snake that I think is going to bite me doesn't really have a lethal bite. It may hurt, but maybe it's not going to kill me. And then you can come out the other side and be like, okay, I went through that experience with this criticism. I faced it. It hurt. It sucked. Like I faced mine. And you faced yours in many situations, not criticism, but other things that you've had to face. And realize that you didn't kill you. You're okay because you had a good support system. And then it changes you. You become you become the version of yourself that you wish you could have become with your parents' help.
Right.
And so you come out the other side realizing that, you know, that was a good growth moment for you. But I think we have to realize that the tough moments will come regardless. And the only way that we can learn is by facing them, trying to go through them, and leaning on the support system we have and letting people know, hey, I'm going to face this tough thing. It may not turn out well, but I'm willing to go through it if you can help me. And then that makes it a lot easier. And it's not such a I'm on my own having to face this thing. You know? So that's the only way you're going to find the answer to that question is how do I face criticism? Well,
you have to face it.
You have to face it in order to learn how
I can help.
You can read as many books as you want, but it's not going to help sink it in the thought. And I think that's what it does. It's like when you read books, it provides answers, but the answers are not your answers.
Well, and even if they are helpful answers, it's like...
Yeah, they don't actually help you go through it so you can feel where those answers come from.
Right. It's like that it's like the episode of The Big Bang Theory where like they were talking to Sheldon about not wanting to face his fear of water.
Right.
And he's like, I addressed that. I learned how to swim. And Leonard's like, you learned how to swim online. Like, you literally laid on the floor.
Right.
And you did...
But you didn't feel what it was like to be in
Right, but he's never actually been in the water.
Right.
He knows the techniques. Like, no one could possibly understand more about swimming than he does.
Right.
But he still doesn't know how to swim.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing right now. Like, you taking the break right now.
Right.
With my help. To help you face the fear of criticism.
Right.
Is helping you realize that you're not alone. That do you have to face it internally alone? Yes, you do. You do. But externally, you don't have to face it alone. And you never will, even if you're technically by yourself. Because, you know...
I have a support system.
You've got a support system that's around you. And so that experience alleviates, I think, some of the fear and maybe helps you process it in a way that you can understand emotionally, and then that sticks with you. And that's what, I mean, essentially when you were little and you were about to face something that was difficult and your parents, let's say your mom, comes into your room and say, hey, are you okay? And you're like, no, I have to face this thing with my friends tomorrow because something embarrassing happened at a sleepover or whatever. And she's like, look, I know you have to go face this thing tomorrow. I can't be there with you at the school. But I can guarantee you that whatever you have to face at the school tomorrow, you can come home and we're going to sit down and you can vent all you need to. And I'm going to be here with you to help you understand what happened. And I'm going to give you a hug and a kiss and tell you it's going to be okay. And you could have gone through that moment realizing that afterwards, at the end of it, you have your mother that's going to be there for you. An individual that in your life emulates a lot of what you're supposed to understand about life and about yourself. And then you grow up understanding that not only do I have the ability to face these things because I've been given the understanding that not everything is going to kill me. And I don't have to treat myself like I'm less than just to escape the awkwardness or the feeling.
And or I don't have to be perfect.
Right.
To avoid, I think that's it. I don't have to be perfect because the reality is I won't ever go through again what I did when I felt totally isolated.
Right.
Because I would face criticism.
Right.
And nobody was there.
And the kicker is that after that experience becomes part of who you are, you embody that and you pass it along, then you know how to be there for your child, your daughter, or your son. And then it creates that cycle that continues to move on. The problem is that your parents didn't know how to do that. They only knew how to avoid, so they passed that along instead.
Right.
And now that's what you're having to undo right now, which is more complicated because our minds are a lot more developed. So we rationale and we overcomplicate and we create an entire narrative around our insecurities that just are cemented in who we are, seemingly. And it's hard to go back to such a simplistic moment when we were little, before the age of 7, where our minds were still developing to latch on to stuff, to make it easy enough for us to face. And it's much more difficult now because we have the ability to create these incredibly terrifying situations that I think when we were little they were scary, yes, but for some reason I feel like they're much scarier now because the detail that we can put into these situations are like unbound. It's almost like we use the worst part of our creativity to build this horrendous situation that we
right.
face.
It's like we make our own nightmares.
Yeah.
And I understand why, because it's a part of evolution that we just have not moved on.
Double-sided. It's the two sides of the coin, of the same coin, is our cognitive ability to be able to build these things in our minds, and you know, if we're poisonous people, we'll create an amazingly poisonous environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and then be like, look, I knew we were right.
Right, exactly. So it's scary, yes, but you're undoing all that now. And I think the more we kind of cement this part of it for you, the easier it's going to be for you to deal with situations where you feel like you have to avoid criticism. Because it's not going to look as scary anymore. You know, you're going to pick it apart little by little, you know, and realize that it's such a tiny thing now. It's
right.
not this monster.
Right. And it's always been hard to explain to people because, like, I think because when you talk to people about fear of criticism, I think a lot of, at least in terms of like what the psychological, neurotypical reason for avoiding criticism isn't anything what I'm dealing with, which is like a lot of it's like, accept that you're not perfect and that sometimes you'll be wrong. And I'm like, I don't care that I'm wrong. I want to know that I'm wrong. I like knowing that I'm wrong. I just don't want to feel like I'm worthless. Like, that's it. Completely let me know that I'm wrong. Or that I've made a mistake. I'm happy. More than happy to address that. And I'm comfortable saying that because I know I would never ever do something intentionally to hurt somebody. And if there's a blind spot, because we all have them, that's hurting somebody, like if our kids came up to me, or Huli came up to me, or King came up to me, and they're like, hey, you did, like, this hurts me, or it hurt me in the past. What kind of psychopath would I be if I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about, or I guess I'm just a bad person. Like,
it's not a psychopath.
Well, okay, I know, but for me it seems crazy because
sure.
I can't imagine doing that. And I've been in those situations.
Sure, because you're on the other side of that.
Yeah. And so I that's why I think it's hard to find clarity and help with this fear.
I think everybody deals with fear in different ways.
And
Some people, like you said, like, where does somebody get the gumption to criticize you? Well, if they're coming at you with like this criticism that seems almost hurtful, it's because they're afraid. And they're afraid because they're insecure. And they're insecure because they went through something similar that you went through, except because of the way that their minds are, neurotypical or whatever.
Or just bad.
They
weren't taught how to do it.
Right, they
healthy.
latched on to a way of dealing with that fear that is opposite the way you deal with it. Yours is to hunker down and be quiet. Others are like lash out and hurt people to prevent their fears from happening.
Right.
And it's not about gumption. It really isn't about gumption. It's about, it's about doing whatever it is that you've learned to do in order to prevent that fear from happening.
Okay.
Or dealing with the anxiety behind that fear.
Right.
And I've seen it from both. I've seen it with you, to where you will stay quiet with stuff that has to do with you. And then I've seen it with other people that go the other direction. And it's like, I get it. I completely understand. They're all on the same wavelength. And you have to call both of them out. You have to call both of them out because they come from a very similar place.
Right.
And so when somebody does criticize you, and it's like, you're being hurtful. Like, the calling somebody out of a criticism where you know they're stepping over the line, and it's not helpful. It's, you're being mean, you're being hurtful. Is it because you are insecure about something? Like, do you think that I did something intentionally to you in terms of like not prioritizing what you needed? Because if that's the case, we can talk about that. But if you're being mean because you're scared, then I need you to stop and take a moment so that you can understand what you're saying and you can communicate to me what you need. Because I can't communicate with people that are like this. I can't. The communication breaks down because you're not communicating anything except through your anxieties and your fears.
Right.
And that's how you deal with certain kinds of criticism. Now, if there's a criticism that comes at you that does trigger you in a sense,
like you're a freak because you dress in cosplay.
Well, no, not necessarily that.
Oh.
Like a criticism that you latch onto with your own insecurities, where somebody doesn't mean to actually mean to like.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like okay, I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, here's a good example. Let's say I'm working on my Harry Potter painting. And you, because we both do this for each other, but I'm really proud of my painting, but you can see a glaring blind spot.
Right.
And you're like, and I'm frustrated because I'm like, ugh, the lighting on this castle just it's not working the way I want it to. But I'm really proud of it. And I do have an insecurity of, with art, like visual art, painting in particular. Mostly because it's not actually painting, I enjoy that, but for me, being an artist was a way that I got, it was the thing that was praised in me. And so, because of that, I feel like if I am automatically not the best, I make mistakes at being an artist, like with painting, then I have let down the people who believed in me. Because that was being praised for my artistic, in terms of like visual art ability, was one of the few ways that my parents could give me affection through their own programming, particularly my dad. He was very, like, super supportive. Like, he entered me in art shows and got me competitions and stuff, which was great. But I, even to this day, feel like I'm letting him down. He invested all this time and energy and money into me. And if I make a mistake, then I'm letting him down. So if you were to tell me, hey babe, that lighting's not right, you're genuinely trying to help me. That's a critique. You're genuinely saying, here's why this is bothering you. But if I was already having a hard moment, my programming will take that and be like, you've let your dad down. He's wasted all this time and he shouldn't be bragging about you because, like, look, you can't even get the lighting right on a painting.
What would your reaction be if a knee-jerk reaction to a statement like that? If I came and corrected you and you had that insecurity, what would your reaction be?
To shut down.
Okay. What would somebody else's reaction be if they learned to work in an opposite direction in terms of like being more vocal about their, like if they were mean about it rather than you being internally like shut down. They'd be angry, right? They'd lash out at me for
yeah, because it's still anxious attachment.
Right.
So it's the other side of the spectrum.
Right.
Which is, you say something mean in hopes that the other person will validate you.
Now, let's put this in perspective. Now that we know the two sides of how somebody could react to an insecurity that way, if I'm the one that's making the correction and being like, hey, I just noticed this thing here, and you lash out at me, or you shut down, one or the other, how was I supposed to know that you had that insecurity? So then what do I do with that? If you act one way or the other, I still got to call it out, right?
Right.
So having said that, now put yourself in my shoes.
Okay.
If you do something without any intention except for whatever it is that you're doing with somebody else, and you say, hey, like there's a delay here that's going on with this project or this order, I just wanted to let you know. Or you come back and you say, hey, this material isn't quite right, or whatever it is. Like, you have to point out something, but for some reason it triggers an insecurity that you have no idea about somebody, and they come and lash and criticize you for the thing that you said or did or didn't do. How are you supposed to know that?
Right.
Except the only thing you can know, which is trying to understand and be perceptive of, this person has an insecurity.
Right, and that's why
and that's why that they are doing this. But I think you can only get there by dealing with your own sense of insecurities, because the closer you get to your own, the easier it is for you to see it in other people.
Yeah.
And then it cures you in a way of your fear of the criticism. So by you dealing with your own, it creates this other perception in other people that they're not so different. They're dealing with their own issues in their own way because they weren't given the support they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And they're either lashing out or they're shutting down. And it becomes easier to understand that way when you realize that, hey, I go through that too. I went through it myself. I had to figure that out. I used to lash out or shut down. Okay. And sometimes I still do. And then you realize that, wow, if somebody criticizes me in a way that looks like it's harsh or whatever, I have to make sure I'm objective about what's being said or done. And if it's subjective, then maybe it's something that's triggering me. And it's not intentional. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that will help me reframe it from being, which is, because the criticism exists, it
right.
must be true.
Correct.
It is because I am so bad, it is worth them overcoming all of this.
Right. And the more you understand it, the more you realize it. And you're just like, okay, so this is either me dealing with an insecurity, with the criticism, and it's not intentional, or this person's being a dick and a real asshole because I can see it. It's clear. And I have to call it out. And that's it.
Right.
But that comes through facing it. That's the only way.
Okay.
You face it internally if it's your own criticism or programming that's making you do things you don't want to do, or you're actually dealing with criticism in real life and somebody's actually putting it in front of you and you're like, okay, it's triggering me, or this person's actually being an asshole.
Or acting out of their own insecurities.
Right.
Like, so if, like, I put something on Facebook, which this has happened recently, because that's the only place it's not like I've changed who I am. I've been posting this stuff everywhere but Facebook, just because I didn't want to deal with it. But now that I'm trying to face my fear of criticism, I put something on Facebook, and a family member, because they can't talk to me apparently, goes to my parents and they're like, your daughter's a piece of shit, you need to fix it. Okay. That criticism I don't even care about. It's not that they said that I'm doing, because I know I'm not putting bad things on Facebook. I'm not like saying let's let's exterminate this group of people. Good God, I'm not saying that. So I know what I'm putting on Facebook is not like hurtful stuff.
Right.
I'm advocating for people and I'm doing mental health stuff.
Right.
And that may be triggering somebody's insecurity.
Right.
Like, but what hurts, and I can see that, and that doesn't hurt me. I don't care. I don't even care if people say crap about me because I dress up in cosplay. But what hurts, and I think this is what I don't know how to deal with, is that my parents don't turn around to that person and say, "Shut up." Like, what is your problem? It's that they don't feel the need, like, why can't they tell them to shut up? That hurts. Like, why, like, if, oh my God, like, whenever Huli tells us that somebody's, like, or somebody tells us something about Huli, like, I always am like, that's not how Huli is. Like, there's, like, I want to defend her.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, I know she's a good person, even if she makes a mistake. But why can't they feel that about me? And so having to face that rejection, I think, where not only they can't tell that person to back off the way I think a parent should be able to, but that then they'll come to me and tell me that they agree with me, but I need to conform to this person, and that is so emotionally devastating.
It is, but the reason they can't do it for you is the same reason you feel like you can't do it for yourself.
They don't know. Oh, I didn't think of that. They just don't know how to defend me.
Well, think about it. If they can't deal with the criticism or the back and forth that would have to come with defending you to their own parents, your mother's parents, if she can't face her own father's face of disappointment,
oh, fuck! I didn't.
That
think
comes
of that.
with her defending you because she hasn't learned how to deal with it. It's basically the same feeling she's giving you about yourself. And you question, why am I not good enough? It's not really about whether or not you're good enough. It's whether or not they learn to be able to
They don't have the
face
skill.
that. Yeah, they have to face that reality or that situation.
But I can defend people. I do defend people.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the most important thing to you. The most important thing to you is being able to be defended and to defend yourself. It's easy to defend others because you got no skin in the game. There's nothing that's going to happen to you when you defend others, not emotionally speaking. You're defending others, nobody's criticizing you. You're defending others of being criticized. That has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. That's easy. If somebody's criticizing Huli and she has nobody to stick up for her, you can step in. Because it allows you to absorb something that has nothing to do with you. But if it's something that has to do with you specifically.
Okay, you're saying in my instance. Okay.
Yes.
I understand now. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's easy to defend others.
Okay.
Because it has nothing to do with you.
Right. Because
that's why I could stick up.
Got it.
That's why I could stick up for other people, even like, in my own, family. But when it came to my mother, I couldn't. I couldn't do it. Because I never learned how to face that situation. And I could face everybody else's all day long because I had nothing to do with it. Not really.
Right.
And that's why you have this feeling of like, why can't they do it for me? And the same reason why you can't do it for yourself.
Okay.
It's not about whether or not you're not important or important. It has nothing to do with that. It seems like it, and it should. It definitely should. And at the end of the day, that's what ends up happening. Is like once you get over the fear of dealing with your own insecurities, it becomes easier to defend people that are important to you and yourself. And you're like, I'm not standing for this at all. And if you decide you want to disappear from my life, that's on you. That's on you. And I faced that already.
And there is no way for you to. It didn't matter how many times we talked about it, or that you know, we prepared for facing your parents. There was
Right.
no way that you could have been able to swim if you didn't get thrown in the pool.
No, yeah. Yeah, there's no way I was going to learn that for myself. Or be able to teach it,
Right.
you know, to Hooli or you. I think Hooli actually knows it a lot better than I do.
Hooli's teaching us how to do it.
Yeah, I think she has learned more about that than I have. But in either case, I can teach it to other people, or at least help explain it in a way that can make sense, because you've been through it. So, I got to take care of some stuff.
Okay.
But how you feeling?
Thanks for a lot better.
Yeah, feel like you can tackle the rest of your day now? Yeah, good. Good.
Thank you, my love.
You're welcome.
I got all my wheat planted.
Oh, your weed! Awesome.
When
are we gonna be? When are?
If this was in Vermont, that would be legal.
That'd
be awesome.
Can this game plant wheat?
No. Well, there's something called starfruit that's an ancient and mystical plant.
Oh,
so.
that's what it is. Yeah, harvest that.
And it says it when you eat it, you feel mystical powers.
Oh my
so
God.
like I'm just realizing
Might
that
be ayahuasca.
that might be what that is. Alright guys, I'm gonna get off of this right quick and I'll get back on my sewing stream.